My mother has been shaming me since I got married and now is trying to marry out my minor daughters. I can't believe I ever had to make a post about my mother, but here we are. My 45F mother, 71F, have a difficult relationship. My mother was old school traditional wife. She was a homemaker, never did any work outside the house, had far more kids than what I think is healthy, 7 girls and 6 boys. She is originally from Guatemala and came to the US when she was 14. She married my father here, had her family here, and tried to make sure myself and my siblings had old school values. Something she really failed at. Most of my siblings are as far from my mother as humanly possible. 2 of them sadly passed away. I'm the only one that stayed near to take care of my parents, and since Dad died, I've taken my mother's bills so she can live easy. She's always been a dramatic headache, especially when it came to my marriage. She babied my husband. Always took his side. I only wanted 1 kid, but my husband wanted as many as biologically possible. He had told me he also only wanted 1 when we talked about marriage. My mother helped him mess with my birth control, so I got pregnant with my youngest. I don't regret my youngest daughter, but after she was born, I secretly had my tubes tied. My mother always berated me for being faulty since I only had 2 children. That's not counting how she berated me for marrying old. I married at 22, she married at 16. My husband was 49 when he died in a car crash recently. We shared 2 daughters, 14 and 16. He was also having an affair with a girl since 2020. The girl was 24 when she died. Together they had twin boys early this year who thankfully survived the crash. My daughters found out the affair first, when their father took them to the hospital to meet the babies and told the girls to keep it secret from me. They didn't, and my husband became abusive towards them and myself. We were in the divorce process when he died. When my husband's affair came out, my mother blamed me. She said it was because I was a working woman that didn't please her husband. That I didn't give him enough children. That I was pretty anymore. I'm not going to say I'm super attractive, but I think I look good for my age. I've kept my weight well enough and I look relatively young for my actual age. But no, according to my dear mother, I wasn't good enough for my husband, who needed a girl closer in age to our daughters than to him. She also was on the group she's trying to find husbands for my daughters, to adopt my husband's mainly focused on my eldest. This crazy plan started this week when my eldest came out to us. I had an idea, and I'm happy she felt comfortable enough in this massive mess we're in to still tell me and her sister. My daughter also decided to tell my mother about it. My mother just ended the call. Then called me to scream about how confused and sick my daughter is. She's linked me conversion camps, psychologists that claim homosexuality is a sickness, wackos in my opinion, political articles, etc. She even wanted to see about doing an exorcism. I told her to stop it or she would be in no contact with my in-laws. She stopped for literally 24 hours. Next thing I get is a Facebook message from a man in his mid-20s asking if it was true that I was looking to marry out my 16-year-old daughter. I told him he was sick and blocked him. I got 6 more through the night. Then my mother called saying she found husband prospects for my girls. My high school-aged girls. Angry has been an understatement. She even gave some of these men my daughter's cell phone numbers. We're all getting new phone numbers tomorrow, and I had the girls put their social medias into private. I don't know what part of the brain is broken in my mother's brain. I had the girls block their grandmother and everything, and I'm stopping payments to anything that my mother needs. I know I need to call the cops. I just never thought I would need to call the cops on my own mother. It's been only 2 weeks since I had to cut my in-laws. I'm just exhausted. And please, do not think this is a normal Hispanic thing. It's not. My aunts are amazing women, most of them also homemakers. They are actually on my side of cutting off my mother and calling the cops. They even suggested for my daughters and I to move closer to them in another state. This is just my mother being insane. Small update, we went to the police today and they took all the information I had. The officer we spoke was incredible and immediately helped my lawyer with all that was needed for a temporary row. We'll be filing it this week and hopefully get it within the month. After we'll focus on a permanent row. This is on my mother and any third parties on her behalf. The officer was also kind enough to offer to check on us and our house at least once a day. School has also been notified of the situation and one of my brothers is going to come live with my daughters and I until we decide if/where/when we move. I can't just up and pack everything since I still have a job and my girls are in the middle of the school year. For now we're safe and my girls have new phone numbers. Update, so some good news came out today regarding my mother. As of November 2024 she will be on her own monetarily. There's also an investigation on her regarding what she tried to do to my daughters, and a very old investigation reopened about a family matter I can't really speak on for the time being. Because of the charges on my mother, we might get an expedite on that restraining order since there's minors involved, so fingers crossed. The row will also keep some others from contacting me, mainly in-laws. On other news, after talking to my daughters, the three of us agree we don't really like our house anymore. It makes me a bit sad because it was my childhood home and a gift from my dad, but the reality is there's too much baggage. I look at some places and it feels like the ghost of my husband's infidelity is everywhere. My girls don't like that we're so close to their grandparents, and my brother, who's moved in with us, has been very blunt about the fact that the house is just not worth the stress. So as painful as it is, I'm planning to do some repairs and either sell or rent it out. It's a big house, 9 bedrooms, so far more space than we ever need. I'll be happy with half that so my girls can have their own room and I can have an office. My brother will also stay living with us after we move. Not sure if it's a forever situation, but he's a good support for my eldest daughter when it comes to LGBTQ+ matters. I have to admit I know the bare facts. While my brother is gay and came out almost 30 years ago, he's been a fount of advice about resources and given her advice, especially after my mother's stunt. My youngest has also started to do better. She's back to talking as usual and seems less scared about going out. She's been very excited about looking for a new house with me. She wants the perfect yard. So, we'll see what we can find. My job offered a transfer out of state, also an international transfer, but that one is more likely a no for me. So a new beginning will do us good. That's all what I got. Not much actual updates as much as settling my mind on some decisions after reading advice here and talking it through with people in my life. As of November, I'm officially refusing to acknowledge my mother. As far as I know, my parents were gone after my father died. Update 2, this is a small update, but wanted to let everyone know we're doing okay. I still can't share many details, but we finally have a court date for the restraining order. It took longer than I expected, but things have been somewhat quiet. I'll let you all know more when I can. My entitled mom wants me to pay my creep stepbrother's student debt. I, 29F, have an older stepbrother, Chris, 42M, who has been a nightmare since the day my mom married his dad. Let me give a bit of background. Our parents married when I was 4 and he was 17. Both our parents were widowed. After their wedding, we moved to the US since my mom had American citizenship through marriage. I was born in the US too, but after my dad died when I was 1, my mom and I moved back to Colombia. Stepdad got his residency through marriage and my stepbrother because he was a minor. My stepbrother wasn't a big fan of me. My only memories of him are just constant bullying. He would be left in charge of me since he was studying locally and lived with my parents, but mostly his babysitting really meant things like locking me in the guest bathroom or the shed outside. He would steal my lunchbox whenever he was the one who dropped me off at school. He even began to harm my pets. I have an old cat that has been with me for almost 22 years. He tried more than once to run her over with his car. My parents never believed any of it. He's the classic golden child. My mom absolutely wanted a son instead of a daughter, so my stepbrother took priority over me. The bullying just kept getting worse and creepier. He had this long key for the bathroom. The door was designed in case it got locked by accident. One could open them by inserting a long stick or key through a small hole on the outside. He would use it to walk in on me showering. My underwear would disappear sometimes and I know for a fact it was him. He also started taking pictures of me sleeping. One night I woke up to him taking care of himself next to me while I slept. I yelled obviously. My parents came over, but he wasn't in trouble. I was for tempting him. I was 14 when this happened. He was 27. No one helped me and he got bolder until he did something I am still in therapy for when I was 16. It got to a point where I called my biological half-older brother Sam 48M and son of my biological father's first wife, to see if I could live with him and his wife, Sandy, during my last 2 years of high school. When Sam found out what was going on, he confronted my mom. My mom didn't care and just told him to take me so long he never asked her for money. Done and done. My brother and his wife became my legal guardians and took me in with my cat and the old family dog since I didn't trust leaving any living creature with Chris around. My parents never checked on me. My extended family from my father's side knew what happened and they immediately got together to ensure I could finish school well and go to college. I don't know my maternal family at all. Thanks to my paternal family, including Sam's mother and her family, I got my bachelor's and master's, no student debt, and work as a nurse practitioner. I still live with Sam, his wife, and their 2 kids, and I pay a small rent. Neither Sam nor his wife expected me to pay anything, but that's the least I can do for the two people who have taken care of me for 13 years. For anyone wondering why I didn't move, it's incredibly expensive where I live and Sam insisted I stay with them until I save enough to buy my own home. Things seemed okay until my mom messaged me recently. She had not messaged me since I was 18 when she told me she no longer had any responsibility to me. In this message, she sounded overly friendly, telling me how she missed me and asking how I was doing. I was a bit creeped out but decided to be nice, telling her about what I had done since leaving her care. She seemed very interested since apparently she knew I was a nurse, but not what kind I was. She began asking me about my salary. I didn't tell her anything about it, but that it was enough to pay the bills. My mom then began texting about Chris and how he was barely making any money due to his student debt. Apparently, Chris never finished a degree, jumping from career to career. He is now working in my stepdad's used cars business as a salesman, but most of his pay went to pay the substantial student debt he got over the year. I told my mom how sorry I was that Chris was having a hard time and wished him luck. That's when my mom finally got to what she wanted. She texted me I needed to pay his student debt so he could finally begin to make the money he deserves like the man of the family. I just turned off my phone. When I got home, Sam was surprised since I was usually the last to arrive. Sandy wasn't home yet. I told Sam what happened and showed him my mom's text messages. I don't think I've seen Sam this angry ever. He told me to block my mom, stepdad, and Chris if I had not done so yet. After talking with Sam and Sandy, I called my boss to ask the next day and the one after off. This gave me a 4-day weekend including the days I'm normally off shift. My boss was more than okay with this and told me to just take it easy and let her know if she could help. This backfired because the next day my mom and Chris decided to come to Sam's house to speak to me. I was alone since Sam and Sandy were at work, and the kids were at school. I immediately called Sam and told him what was going on. He told me not to open the door and that he was on his way. My mom spent the whole time screaming that I owed them for raising me and that my sweet brother deserved the money. Chris was going around trying to find a window or door unlocked. There wasn't any since the windows have safety bars and the only other door is in the closed garage and one in the yard. The yard one was locked and just in case I locked the one in the garage. I won't post what he called me when he saw me from one of the windows, but basically, he pretty much told me they should have thrown me away when I was a baby since I grew to be a bee. He pounded in one of the windows so hard, he actually cracked the glass. Eventually, he gave up and went back to the front door, clearly trying to kick it down. I didn't have anything to worry about, the door was a security door, but I was still very scared. Between yelling, threatening, pleading, and insults, I finally heard Sam screaming to them to get lost. I only saw things from the window. Sam pretty much dragged them both off the porch. They got to a point I couldn't hear, but I saw my mom and Chris pale and look scared before they pretty much ran to their car and drove off way past the legal speed limit. Sam came in a bit after and immediately went full overprotective brother mode, asking me if I was okay. He kept saying sorry and hugging me. Sandy arrived almost immediately after and she looked like she was about to commit a felony. Apparently, Sam threatened him with filing charges for what he did to me when I was 16. My brother's ace, my stepdad was willing to testify against his own son. That seemed enough to get Chris off our backs, but not my mom. Since then, it's been 3 days, and my mom has sent texts, called non-stop with various numbers, and rallied a group of people who are supposedly my maternal family to harass me for money. She claims that money should legally be hers since she's my mother. That it's my late father's missed child support. Sam is helping me find a lawyer to get a restraining order on my mom and I plan to take my stepdad's offer to testify by pressing charges against Chris. I can't say I can forgive him for not stopping his son, but I appreciate he's at least trying. I don't know the details, but Chris did something to a relative of his dad and since then they had a really bad fallout. I took my boss's offer and will be on vacation for a few more days. But here it is. My vacation days are getting eaten up and my therapist might need a therapist after. Thankfully my dark sense of humor and supportive paternal family are keeping me somewhat sane.